Alright, so let's take a look at progress on the Kubota. Talk about some of the stuff I've been doing here and a couple of challenges I ran into on this thing. Yeah, my paint job ain't much. I just shot some orange on here, used some scrap paint I had laying around, mixed up this color. Yeah, I could use color sanding and buffing, and it could have used a bit more body work, but honestly, as soon as I use it, I'll probably drop a load of rock on the top of it. You know, probably end up denting it up. And I don't really want to worry about having to do that. So anyway, of course, it fires right up now. Engine's rebuilt. We did have some challenges. If you have a 295 or a 245 DT, you'll notice that your oil pan, if you don't have all those bolts tight, they end up cracking, and that's what mine did over time, and they're not available. At least for the 295, they're not available. I don't know if they are for the other ones. Then we were having a little bit of trouble with the shifter, and I noticed down under here you see this little screw. The corner had chipped off of this housing here, and our shifter linkage was kind of worn out. So what we did is kind of recreate that, welded up some of the ends of the shifter linkage and got them to be, to work good. But this thing here, what's happening is this is kind of loose because of this, and we tried to just fix it, but I gave up on that because I actually checked at the Kubota dealer, and this part is available, but it is not cheap. It's $300. So, but to me, after we've had it apart 4 or 5 times, it's worth it just to spend the $300 and just get a new one and be done with it. Still haven't done the seat yet, and my RPM gauge. The gauge works, but looks like the gear is bad inside. But I did put the cable on, so probably what happened is the cable seized up, and the gear in the front, the gear up here in the front, is probably gone or worn out or something. I'm not sure. We're going to take that apart again and take a look at it and see what we need. Yeah, I found the headlight was missing over here, and now I have headlights. I didn't have headlights before. Plus, I didn't even have a temperature gauge. I mean, that wasn't working. So what I did, looks kind of crappy, but it does work. That's what I'm looking for, is functionality of this thing, not really for looks. I just didn't want it to be pink and faded out, so that's why I painted it. And I put a clear coat on here that's UV protected, so that that'll stay nice. But what I found is that the headlight was missing. I mean, normally it's kind of a lens here, and then there's a bulb behind here. So if you take yours apart, this lens actually comes off kind of like a VW Bug, like the old ones were, and then there's a light bulb behind it that you can change. Well, I mean, I could have just put a light bulb in there with no lens on it, but what I did is I went to Harbor Freight Tools, and they have these, they're called work lights or something like that, and I just got one of these and then wrapped it up. It doesn't quite fit in the housing. I just wrapped it up with some tape, and then took a little bit of silicone and put it in place. Use some silicone to hold it in there so that it won't fall apart, and just wallowed out the hole in the back. Just shoved it in there that way. It only has the one, the low beam or the high beam works, and that's it. But that doesn't really matter. Like I said, it has a light now where it's kind of nice, where I can use it at night. We went through all the wiring. It was all messed up. It's actually pretty simple if you have to work on it. We just went through all the wiring and buttoned up everything, got it all fixed. Then of course the charging system did work fine, didn't have a problem with that. I think this is a Ford alternator and a Ford regulator. Just if you're looking, I think you can buy this universal one, you know, that will change. So in the transmission, I'm going to tell you guys what they put in these now. Is it started out they were putting 80 weight transmission oil in these, but when I talked to the Kubota dealer, they have a new spec for it. It doesn't have 80 weight in it. You know, they didn't require 80 weight, which I used 80 weight. I just used 80, 90 gear oil in the transmission, and but now they're saying that you can actually put the tractor fluid in them. They have some Kubota part number tractor fluid, but apparently we were kind of trying to figure that out when I was at the Kubota dealer getting this case ordered. And also the connecting rod had one bad bolt, because actually we ended up stretching one of them because the specs in the book are terrible. I mean, if you really want to, you could buy one of these manuals. I mean, but I'll tell you, this manual here is pretty damn terrible. And I'm going to tell you that the information in here has been so sketchy that I've barely been able to use it. It is like very, very somewhat helpful, but for the most part, I mean, it shows you the timing marks, but it's basically, you know, the old saying Chinglish. Well, this is Yinglish, because this is, or Jinglish, Japanese English back in the old days. So it's not really very helpful, and it's pretty terrible. It looks like it's got a lot of good stuff in it, but it's not very helpful. I would forgo buying one of these if you can. I mean, don't think that this is going to give you any information. It's we've been able to go to it maybe once or twice, and almost everything in here has been completely useless. So anyway, that's some of the updated stuff we got on here. It's running good, but we do have a pan leak. The pan is leaking, but what I'm going to do is when we get this all done, it's not leaking up here anymore. Maybe it is. Yeah, it's leaking right there at the bottom of here, or around there. But what we're going to do is, when we get this all done and running for a while, I'm going to go ahead and dump the oil on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and after it's all dumped out of here, clean this whole surface, and then I'm going to use I've already welded that up pretty good, and I'm going to use some of this stuff, and this works. Clean it really clean, dry, let it sit overnight, make sure it's really good and clean and dry, and all the oil's drained out of it for maybe a day or two. And then take some of this Mega Black right here from O'Reilly Auto Parts, and then I'll just clean it and coat the outside of it. I've done this before, it does work. And if you've got that oil pan oil leak, that'll help you out with that. Well, anyway, we'll be putting the loader on here pretty soon, and put the backhoe back on it. I'm going to go ahead and, the backhoe I have is the actual one for the L295. They're very hard to find. Don't ask me if I want to sell it. No, I don't. I bought this thing specifically because it had a backhoe, and they are very expensive and very hard to find if you can find one. So you almost pay what you pay for a tractor for the backhoe. So anyway, I was fortunate enough to find one with the backhoe, even though this thing was a piece of crap and maintained terribly. That was what I bought it for. So while you're putting that back on, I'm going to go ahead and paint the loader up. It is the correct loader for this one. I do not know the part number. I don't know any of that stuff. I didn't know anything really about tractors until I got this. We did put in a universal gauge here because the gauge actually was bad that was on here, so put that in here. The glow plugs work. The glow plug, a little bit of smoke comes out of there when it's warming up. The glow plugs, and it is kind of slow to do. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's a not bad looking tractor now. It doesn't look like a piece of garbage like it did before. It was pink, so I didn't want a pink tractor because it was all fade. Now, I had, what it was is it was orange and it was completely rusty because it had been just sitting outside and there was rusty spots all over it. So I painted it with Rust-Oleum at first, and I knew that it was going to fade. If you use Rust-Oleum, it's going to turn pink, you know. So I mixed the red and the yellow Rust-Oleum together and made the orange. And then what I did is I knew that was going to fade out. I was going to use that as a primer, and I sanded all that down, and then I painted it with a regular automotive base coat with a clear. So, you know, that's the only way to really do it if you're going to make it last. Otherwise, the orange will just fade like in minutes. All right, so I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Well, check and look at some more stuff on this tractor. I'm going to do some operation stuff on it, and stay tuned if you're an L295 person. There really isn't much video on this stuff. It's an old tractor. There's not a lot of them around. So, but it is really a very, very well made machine. So I'll talk to you next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.